Everybody, this is an introductory video to Amanda Berry Smith and her autobiography. Obviously, you are going to read it, so you will learn plenty about her life, but I want to give you a little bit of background here, talk about why I chose this particular book and what you may learn from it. This writing falls within the genre of spiritual autobiography. Again, this is not new. Augustine's Confessions is probably the most famous spiritual autobiography, but these start to become very, very popular with Protestants starting in like the 17th, 18th century. Like Moravians, both men and women, would write spiritual autobiographies, everybody, and then these would be read at a person's funeral as a sort of final testimony. Just an interesting side note. But a lot of women wrote these spiritual autobiographies. It's great for us historians because we have quite a few of these. It's one of the few like good places you can get great autobiographical information on some of these, like traveling evangelists, okay? But more to the point of why women wrote, this actually makes a ton of sense, right? Women were often barred from gaining an education, especially a theological education, which makes composing like a more traditional theological work very, very difficult, very unobtainable. Plus, I mean, in general, women writing theology until pretty much the modern era was really frowned upon, okay, or actively suppressed in other instances. But writing a spiritual autobiography was seen as a very, very positive thing, okay? So women could write about their conversion stories, their faith, their life experiences in a completely socially acceptable manner, all right? Plus, women were absolutely doing theology, exploring scripture, Christian history, again, but in a format that was considered appropriate because it was in this autobiographical format, okay? So as you read this book, you'll find out plenty of things about Amanda Berry Smith's life, but there is a bigger emphasis on her faith journey than anything else, okay? Like, for example, I think she gives her first husband like 2 lines in the entire autobiography, okay, where she spends pages and pages and pages talking about her sanctification, okay? So while her faith is a huge focus, you get some pretty fascinating accounts of her life. And her life is very interesting. She's a camp meeting preacher. She's a temperance speaker. She's a missionary. She goes to England, Liberia, India. Her impressions of these countries are pretty fun as you read through them too, very interesting. You really get some overarching themes of evangelism, mission work, and social reform kind of through her life story, okay? The text was originally published back in 1893 with a very, very lengthy title that's usually just kind of shortened up to autobiography. But back in the US, after her book ends, so she writes it in 93, she lives for a number of years after that. She opens up an orphanage for African American children in the town of Harvey, which is south of Chicago, in the year 1899. She struggled with financing, and the orphanage closed a couple of years after she died. But you can see she continues with kind of this social reform mission ideal even after she's back in the United States. Okay, she died in 1950 when she was living in Florida at the time, but she's buried near Harvey. Okay, she was very, very well known and very respected within her lifetime, and she's left a pretty significant legacy in history, especially in the area of preaching and temperance and mission work.